Hello friends. So today's topic is about capital budgeting, and this is something that we need to start a business. And capital, we use that to create assets, and these assets are something which give us returns in the future. And those returns are like cash flows and profits. Okay, let's begin. So what does this topic cover about? It covers about the first the definition of capex, then the process, how the budgeting is done, then how a project is appraised, basically how a project is analyzed, and then the cost and benefits, the investment criteria, that various methods that we choose to assess a business or a business case. Then we analyze the various risks associated with that. In the measurements, basically in measurements term, not in the other aspect, but in the measurement, like whatever cash flows that we have assumed, whether any risk is there or not, that we will also we talk about. Then the cost of the capital. So when we are raising this capital, what at what cost we are raising it, and what are the various options that we have, and as per that the cost gets decided, that is also covered. And then if that cost is not, I mean the capital is not applied here, what are the other options are that capital has, and what is the, I mean, value of the various options of that we have in the capital. This it's also covered in this lecture. Okay. And overall, whatever the decisions that a business unit is taking, it should be aligned with the overall corporate consideration. So that's the overall topic, or the subject of our capex. Okay. So let's move on. And yeah, okay. And the project appraisal by financial institutions. So basically an investor, when he sees it from outside, whether he or that person actually how they look the project at, from the financial perspective, that is also being covered in this capital whole capex chapter. Okay. So first of all, what is capex? Okay. So for example, there are like a steel company wants to build a new arc furnace, or insurance company thinking to plan, I mean they're planning to install a computer system for information processing, or government of India is like trying to link Ganges and the Kaveri River. So they will have to build dams, or they will have to cut out the mountains to create path for the rivers to flow. So that is again a capex investment. So it is a one-time investment which is going to give us returns in the future. Probably a graduate is trying to buy a motorcycle, so he will buy the motorcycle today, and he will use it, he'll create an asset, and then he will use that asset to create cash flows for him in the future. So he'll use that for traveling, and that traveling, when he is working for a company, for anything, for his own or for a company, he's going to generate cash or income for him. That is nothing but a cash flow for that person. And similarly, a pharma company or an automotive company trying to do an R&D investment for a project. So for example, Bajaj wants to make a new version of Pulsar, and then for that it needs development cost to be incurred, and then the manufacturing, the plant setup and everything to be done. So that is also a capex investment that they have to make. Okay, now all this have a similar, in each, all of them actually requires a current outlay. I mean, basically, initially there is an investment being has to be done, and then basically, and what we expect is a stream of revenues in the future. So that's the basic nature of each of these. For example, even a Delhi Metro or any metro station that the governments are making, first of all, it creates job, and then it also gives, helps to generate cash in a longer horizon of time. Probably it has a social cause also, that the government is supposed to provide the transport facilities. It is in the scope of the government, but still, how does government generate revenue for itself? It creates new sources of revenue, and that is nothing also but a capex investment that it does. Okay, and similar in the term is like any you know any highways, or which has a toll booths. A highway is being constructed with a seed capital, and then the cash flows from the, in terms of the toll collection that comes. So these are nothing but a cash flow examples, capex examples. Now, if you see the nature of it, it is a long term, it has a long term consequence, and it's difficult to reverse a capex decision. So once then, it is for a longer period of time. It's very difficult to reverse that. And the third part is that it involves a substantial outlays. Okay. So it is not like an operation expense, which is probably controllable, and you can decide whether you want to do it in this year or not. But capex is something that is a long term, and it's a very thoughtful decision that a company or an organization needs to make. Okay, I'll move on. Now, what is the process of this capital budgeting process? So, basically, it's about identification of the various potential, investment opportunities that we have. Then we assemble those investment proposals. Then we make a decision that whether that capital budgeting will be fine or not for the organization. Then we prepare the budgets, and then we appropriate the funds. We do an implementation, and then the performance review is also done. So that's a typical capital budgeting process. So any company, a pharma company trying to introduce a new R&D, is trying to set up a project where they are coming up with a new drug, so they would go through with all these options, and there will be performance review at the end of the during the process, also during this capital expenses being done during the implementation phase. Okay, so in terms of the key project, project appraisal, basically understanding appraisal means the here evaluating whether the project makes sense or not. So from that perspective, so first and foremost, the the cost and benefits of this project is forecasted. So I think this is one of the key thing to assess. So basically, what happens is, for example, any project to be done for say, an highway to be laid out, 1,000 crore investment has to be done, and then this 1,000 crore investment, if done, so probably it starts giving a toll collection of 150 crores for around next 10 years. So if that is the case, so that's the cost, and the benefits are being forecasted. So based on this costing and the forecasting, the benefits forecasting and the costing of the present expenses, uh, the whole appraisal of the project is done. If this goes wrong, this is all the below assumptions or the below calculations is going to go wrong. So basically, the cash flow calculation for a project is one of the key steps in this process. And then once it is done, we do an risk assessment. We estimate the cost of the capital, like when the capital is borrowed, at what cost you're borrowing it. So if you're borrowing it at around 6-7% or 5% or 8%, you probably will are expecting a return at least double of that, so that it makes a decision viable for you to go ahead. Then a suitable investment criteria is chosen. We value the options, and then overall whether the corporate, I think this we already talked about, whether it has to match with the overall corporate perspective. For example, an automotive company, or trying to do a business, automotive, or vehicle finance business, if that is the thing that they want to do, it is aligned with the corporate thing. But suppose that company, I'm just thinking in wildest dream, like it wants to go ahead and set up a paint industry, although they are buying paint from companies like Asian, Nerolac, or Dulux, or any other company also. But if they want to set up a paint for which they do not have an experience, and the corporate of Bajaj Auto doesn't allow that, so then it doesn't make sense in this. So that's the last point being talked about. I hope it is clear with you. So this is one of the, as I explained in the previous slide, it's one of the most important aspect of project appraisal. So basically, a focus on the cash flows, or how the cash flows are going to be generated, and that's being estimated, basically forecasted, and this estimation is done on a post-tax basis. And then depreciation and other, and whenever we are doing a calculations, for cash outflows or inflows, basically your profits, and then the depreciation also that we have considered in the PLN, profit and loss statement. Those depreciation also needs to be added back to the profit, because depreciation is something that we are not paying upfront or in any of the year. It's an accounting principle which is being applied for for the benefit of assets being, assets being depreciating over a period of time. But it's a non-cash charge which we deduct from the profit and loss. So that's why it's important that we add it back to the cash flows that we are calculating. Then what we do is, like, we measure the cash flows on an incremental basis. Like the cash flows, how do we value the project is like cash flows of the firm with the project, and cash flows of the firm without the project. Okay, so what's the incremental, what's the additional cash flow this project is going to fetch for the company? So that is what being calculated. Then uh, it's like all incidental effects, like any, um, suppose for example, um, you have a presence in one industry, and then in relation to that is the industry, you are venturing into another related industry. That's an incidental effect that you have. You got an up, you see an opportunity there, you want to venture out. So that complementary relationship has to be, it has to be considered while we are doing a cash flow calculations. Then any sunk cost, which is a cost that has been incurred and you cannot recover that, so please ignore that. Then opportunity cost needs to be included. So um, for example, you already have a land available with you, and if you are using that land, what's the benefit you are going to get? So that also needs to be considered as an opportunity cost. Then whenever there is an overhead being charged, for example, in an accounting, there are always some overheads being, like the finance overhead, HRA overheads, or any production overheads are being generally charged into the accounting, while doing the accounts. So we have to justify that and rationalize those unjustified overhead costs also. Okay, this is all nothing but theory only. And then net working capital. So we don't, I mean, we while we are doing a project start, we have to consider the working capital needs of that project also. Okay, so to run that business, a cash would be needed, a working capital would be needed, net working capital. So that also needs to be considered all the time, and it is generally financed by equity, preference, on debt, or any means of that sort. Okay, so and so what happens is, we exclude the financing cost. Okay, so why do we do that? Because interest and debt actually, already it is being discounted already. Okay, when we are doing the calculations, so that's why it's being excluded when financing cost is not considered while we are doing this. And then treat inflation consistently. What it says is that generally the returns are considered in nominal terms, and nominal terms is real return plus the inflation returns. So usually the returns are, all the returns should be considered in nominal terms only, not in real terms. Okay, so if somebody is saying 11% return or 20% return, and there's been inflation of 4% or 5% or 6%, so real return is 14 minus 6, sorry, 20 minus 6, 14% only. And but we always talk about 14% as the nominal return. Okay. Okay, so so up to this, what we have covered is just a basic theory of the whole capital budgeting, and now from this point, we'll probably enter into some kind of calculations, or which we engineers probably would like to see that. And let's start that portion. So first of all, whenever there is a, I mean, capital project being undertaken, there are three types of cash flows that needs to be considered. One is the initial cash flow. At the start of the project, we have to invest something. Then there is an operational cash flow. So during um, the operations, whatever the life cycle of that project is, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, and will continuously, keep on getting some kind of inflows. The operations of the business will generate some cash. So that's an operational flow. Then there is a terminal flow. So at the end of the project, you probably, whatever the left out assets are, those will be sold off, or they will be salvaged, or even the net working capital which you seeded in front at the beginning of the project will get back. So that is also going to come back. So that's a terminal flow we talk about. So initial flow is initial outlay, then operational flow, which is probably generally an inflow, cash inflow. Then terminal flow is also an inflow. At the end of the project, you will get back the money which you're supposed to get. Okay, so this is also considered post-tax salvage value of the net working capital, and so that's the various formulas. You can have a look at it by pausing the video here. And now that's been done, what we'll do is first we'll try to understand how the cash flow of a project is, is generated. So let us first see that. So this example is taken from the book itself. So there's a company called Naveen Enterprises, and what it wants to do is it wants to have a capital project which has an initial outlay of 100 million, and then out of this 80 million is will be spent on the plant and machinery, and the 20 million will be the net working capital. So that will be kind of a cash which will be kept for the running of the business. Then the project will be financed by 45 million equity capital, 5 million preference capital, and 50 million debt capital. And preference capital, the dividend has been decided 15%, and the debt capital will also carry a cost of 15%. Okay, so both debt and preference capital are coming at a cost of 15%. And then the whole life cycle of this project is about 5 years. At the end of 5 years, the fixed assets will fetch a net salvage value of 30 million. Okay, and the net working capital will also be liquidated. So what it means is that at the end of 5 years we'll get 30 millions as a salvage value, and then also we'll also get the net working capital also back, whatever the 20 million that we have calculated, we had kept. And then is going to fetch revenues of 120 million per year, and then expected cost for running this project is also 80 million. So net is actually 40 million kind of per year revenue will be generated. And then the plant and machinery will have a depreciation value of about 25% per year, at the book value. So 20% of the 25% of the book value uh, of the assets will be depreciated each year. Okay. Okay. So I have created this Excel file, so which is probably generating the cash flows. But let us understand why we are doing it first. Okay. As you have understood from the previous, I mean, the first section of this presentation, that we first need to calculate the cost and benefits of this, is forecast the cost and benefits of this project. So that is what we are trying to do here. Okay, so we are trying to focus the cash flows from this come from this investment for this project. Okay, so first of all we learned that there is an 100 million as as the initial investment that needs to be done, and out of this 80 million would be for fixed asset and 20 million for the net working capital. Okay, so first year there will not be any revenues, of course, and then next year onwards there will be a addition a revenue of 120 million per year for 5 years. Since the lifestyle or lifetime of the project is considered to be that like that, and then the costs also is about 80 million per year that needs to be incurred. Okay, and the depreciation also, it's basically whatever is the book value fixed assets you have, up 25% of that. Okay, so 25% of 80. Okay, so that's a 25% of 80 is the book value. Now next year is your book value has reduced from 80 to 60, right? So 80 to say, minus 20, that's what been calculated here, and 80 minus 20 into 25% is 15. So that way, and then now that we have, now for this third year our book value will be a you know addition of basically 80 minus 20 minus 15, and then 25% of that. So that's being done here in this book depreciation. So what happens is profit is nothing but your 120 million minus 80 million minus 20. Okay, that's the profit of first year, and this way the profits has been calculated for each of these year. Then the tax is about, I think, 30%. So 30% tax is also being calculated over this profit before tax, PBT, profit before tax. And then profit after tax, PAT, is calculated as about 20 minus 6, mere calculation. So 20 minus 6 is 14, and then 7 is 25 minus 7.5. This way the tax is calculated. Okay, and then what happens at the end of this project, what we want or supposed to get is a net salvage value. Okay, so that is nothing but the 30 million that's also mentioned in the case study. Then a 20 million also will get at the as a net working capital back. Okay, it will get it back. So if you see, initial outlay is about 100 million. These are the various cash flows, and then at the terminal value also we are getting at 50 million. Okay, so now let's calculate what's going to be the operating cash flow. So initial outlay is this. Operating cash flow is nothing but your H plus E. So basically your profit after tax plus the depreciation. Okay. So we are going to add the depreciation. That's also been talked about. That we need to add the depreciation back into the profits. Okay. So each year we have calculated this, and the terminal cash flow is about 14. So if you see, the net cash flow is about 34, 32, 31. This is the cash flow, and then I mean, initially of course it is nothing but this value itself, which is minus 100. Okay, so yeah, and then the book value of this investment, if you see, this is nothing but your fixed assets value. So this is about 80 plus 20, or let me open the book. If I'm correct. Yeah. So book value of the investment is about 80 plus 20, or at the first year. Then it gets reduced by the depreciation value 80, and then further. So this is how this. I think this calculation is very important, because based on this calculation, um, uh, all the other calculations, the formulas, the investment criteria that we are going to talk about, it's based on this calculation. So it's important that we understand this cash flow, statement generation or forecasting of the cash flows of this project. Okay, so now basically the next section is going to talk about investment criteria, and there are four methods basically in this. One is nothing but your average, I mean, payback period. So in how much time you're going to get back the initial seed capital that you have invested. The average rate of return, what's going to be the rate of return for this project. Then the net present value and the internal rate of return. This is nothing but IRR. Okay, this is called NPV, this is called IRR. So each of this methods will keep on saying this. So payback period, if you see, so this is another example which is given in the book. It says that initially there is a 6 lakh outflow, and then cash inflow is like this, 1 lakh 2.5, and then the cumulative cash flow, if we calculate, so this is going to be like minus 6 at first, then you add 1 lakh, so it's going to be minus 5 lakh minus. So as we see that at this third year, this payback period or this cumulative cash flow is becoming positive. Okay, so that's like, so it says that the payback period of this project is about 3 years. Okay, and for example, there is a constant cash flow coming out of the project. So initially we spend 10 lakhs, and then we get back 3 lakhs each year. So payback period is nothing but your 10 divided by 3, 3.33 years. Within 3 years you are able to recover the initial capex that you have invested. And if we go by the example which is given in the book, okay, so minus flow cash, so this is nothing but the cash flow that we calculated. Okay, um, if I'm so minus 30, 34, 32, 31, and if we keep on adding this, we see that at the end of the fourth year we are becoming positive. So we can say that the payback period is between 3 and 4 years. Okay, so I think this is clear up to this point. Okay, the payback period, very simple method, very simple method. Okay, and basically, shorter the payback period in years, the more desirable is the project, if we see it only from the payback period. Okay, so basically it says that I'll get the investments back, and then from that we'll keep on generating cash flows, which is not considered or a part of the payback period, and that's one of the demerits what we are going to talk about. Okay, so first of all, it's very simple and concept. Okay, so it favors projects which are generating a substantial cash flows in the initial years, and it discriminates projects which are having a cash flows in the later part of the year. And if you see it from an investor perspective, or an entrepreneur perspective, so as the future, as that with the time period, the of the risks also increases. So generally it is helpful for weeding out the risky projects. Okay, so longer the horizon of the future, the more is the risk, and then it helps to keep away from those kind of investments. Then it's a sensible criteria when companies or organizations are hard pressed with liquidity. So whatever investments they are trying to make, they want to get a payback ASAP. So it's suitable for that. Now the demerit is most important demerit of this is that it doesn't consider the time value of money. Okay, it doesn't consider that. And if you do not know what is time value of money, I'm giving you a card at the top of this video where I've talked about the time value of money in detail. So that's the precondition to watch this from this point of time for this video. Okay, and then it also ignores the cash flows beyond a certain period of time, and uh, its profitability of the project is not considered in this method, and it measures liquidity. It doesn't indicate the liquidity position of the firm as a whole, which is more important. It considers project's liquidity more than the whole company's liquidity. Okay, this next method is about average rate of return, and the formula for that is that profit after tax divided by the book value of the investment. So if you see the book value of the investment is this, profit after tax is this. So we just need to undo an average of these two, and it's gonna give you a result. So it says that 28% is about the average return of rate of return from the book example that is given in the book. Merits simple to calculate. I think it's very easy to understand this average rate of return method. Then it's based on the accounting, which is like readily information available, and basically this the merit is not. I mean, demerits is also that it is not taking the time value of money. Okay, and it's basically accounting profit it sees. It doesn't see any cash flows or anything of that sort. Okay, and then the most interesting part that is going to come is in net present value and the IRR methods. Okay, so let us see on those also. So, what does net present value means? Okay, first let us understand. So, suppose a project which we have seen in the example, it's going to generate a cash flow of so and so of millions in the upcoming 5 years. Now, suppose for those cash flows, what is the present value of those cash flows? Okay, and when you're doing a summation of everything, that becomes the net present value of all the cash flows in the future. So this is nothing but that. Okay, so whatever the cash flows we are going to get in the future, in the next 5 years, 10 years, we say that what is the value of those cash flows today, and if it is positive we accept the proposal, if it is negative we reject the proposal. Okay, so if we see this, using the Excel formula, so basically what we are doing is we are calculating the present value, and we are calculating that this project is at least going to fetch us 15% return. That's the basic assumption. Okay, so so basically we use the formula like present value 15% return. D5 is nothing but this, I think this column, and then time, this is the time period basically, and then the present value of 100 rupees today, that is nothing but 100 rupees only. Okay, so present value of 30, so 34 is the cash flow that I'm supposed to get in the next 1 year. What is the present value of 34 rupees today, at a discounted rate of 15% or an interest rate of 15% is 29 rupees 5.57 paisa. 32.5, 2 years from now we are going to get this cash, uh, present value is about 24.57. So this way we have calculated, and then we have done a summation. So this gives us like 31.95 is the summation of all these cash values that's going to come in the future. Okay, so this is the present, this is a positive value. Okay, okay, so what's going to happen is the net present value, if it is positive we accept the proposal, if it's negative we reject the proposal. Okay, and this is nothing but an illustration. So the it basically means that the rate of return of this project is higher than 15%. Okay, that's what it means. And if it is negative, then it means that the rate of return of this project is lower than 15%. So if we are saying that we are expecting a project to generate a 15% return at least for the company, and this net present value is going to come as negative, then probably we are going to reject the proposal as per the NPV. Okay, NPV method. So next topic is about internal rate of return. Okay, so in internal rate of return, what we do is we try to make the NPV as zero. So if you see that, what happened here is that at 15% your NPV was positive. So probably what we needed to do is we had to increase in NPV value, say 17% or 18%, and probably this then this net present would have been become zero. So that gives like IRR gives like, what's the rate of return my project is generating. So that's the basic calculation behind it, or the theory behind it. So we saw that the cash flows are coming. Then if we consider 20% as the present value, then this is the formula. So this total comes out to be like 20, 15.89. Okay, and then if we consider 24% as the discount rate, then this comes out to 4.5 5.18, and if we consider 28%, it is coming out to -4. So this is where it became negative. So the value is definitely going to be between 24 and 28, and there is some formula, big formula given in the book. I don't think we need to get into that, but overall the answer is about 26.25. Okay, so this I'll show you in the case study also that professor has shown to us. How, I mean, I don't think we need to go into this formula, but it's something which is given in the book, so I have written it here. Okay, and if we make a comparison between the net present value and IRR methods, so of course it takes about takes care of the time value of money, and it also considers the cash flow stream of a project in its entirety. So we have seen the average rate of return and considers as a profitability, and payback period talks about time period until which the capex is returned. But these methods actually they consider all the future cash flows throughout the lifetime of the project. Then some demerits are also there, uh, like so what we have seen is we have seen that the cash flow is has been positive all throughout. If suppose there is at 1 year the cash flow is negative, then as per the book the demerits is that it's that this IRR return actually is not good. I haven't personally tried that, it could be a case. And of course, and then one more case is that suppose there are two projects, okay, P and Q project, and the project P has an initial cash flow of minus 10,000, and the Q has a cash flow of minus 15,000, basically cash inflow. Okay, and so what's going to happen is so these three projects are of different type. Okay, one is of with 10K, and another is of 50K. So if you see the IRR from the IRR perspective, uh, this project P is better, and from the NPV at 12% perspective, Q is better. So these are two opposite results which are coming out. So basically, we have to compare. What this study indicates is that we have to compare projects of similar scales. Okay, we cannot compare a project which is in having this kind of case like 10, I mean a gap of which is not within the same range. So that is something that we need to consider. Okay, now what we are going to do is we'll go to the XLS file or the case study what professor has given as the investment detective case. So I have done some thing like this is the information which is available in the case study itself. So initial investment is about 2000 there are 8 projects first of all. Okay, so there are 8 projects, and then initial investment is say minus is 2000 rupees or crores or whatever we want to call it in the initial stage, and there is a cash flow being being calculated from the each of the projects. So if you see the project one, the cash flow is like ending up to 8th year, and the 7th year the yellow cells are something which are payback according to the payback period, they are becoming positive. So project 3 suppose is becoming positive directly at the 15 year. In between there has been no cash flow throughout this lifetime, which is a bad case. But then there are projects which is like the project 4 where um, we are getting a payback period, and then there is a decent good amount of time when we are getting a good cash flow before the terminal value we are getting the investment back. Okay, so now this being done, so what we have I've done is summation of this cash flows. Okay, so whatever the summation of this cash flow benefits is there, and then excess cash flow is like overall this is nothing but a cumulative cash flow. Okay, for the whole thing. Now we had to calculate payback period is simple, no brainer. Average rate of return we cannot calculate from this because we don't have the profits and the book value of the investment also. Okay, so we don't know about the depreciation, so average rate of return we cannot calculate from this data. Now, if we see the net present value, so basically what I have mentioned is that we have to calculate the net present value of all the cash flows. Okay, that's the thing that we need to do. So if you see, So I have used the formula like present value, then this uh, uh, 2000 rupees, and then the discount is like discount rate as per the case study is 10%. So that's coming out to be like 10,000. So similarly for this 330 rupees, the present value of that 330 rupees in the in the current I mean which is going to come after 1 year is about 300. Similarly, the present value of all these things has been calculated, and then the net present value is summation of all this. Okay, so this is coming out to be like 73 in the positive. So definitely, it's one of the good project. But if you see the project two, it is similar calculation has been done, and this is coming out to be like minus 85. So from this similar calculation has been done for all the 8 projects, and if this is the case, then the net present value here is about so from this perspective, project 3 is the most profitable or recommended project. Okay, although from the payback perspective it was the bad, and but from the net present value perspective, this is one of the good project. And I think the second good project is about this one, the project 4, where we are having a good cash flow um, throughout the lifetime of the project and subsequently. Okay, what I have done is um, simple, the present value of all these future cash flows and then the summation of that. Simple. Okay, at a 10% discount rate, summation of all the present value of the cash flows. Now internal rate of return also, what we had to do is we had to make this cash flow, this net present value basically as zero. Okay, and the other method was the calculation, the formula in the IRR formula itself. So what um, basically what had I've done is to make this order into zero. I had played with the numbers, like initially I tried with 10.5, it was coming out to be this, then I increased it to 8, still it was positive, and then I just figured out that it's so if you see here, I have not tried to do that because I've just ignored this small negative values. So similarly, so present value here is a number, it's a positive number. IRR here is a negative, is a percentage. And we can also use the simple formula which professor talked about. It's IRR of all the cash flows. Okay. So this also gives similar result, and similar results we could see that uh, okay, I think in this case itself it has been weird. I'll check it out. But yeah, other cases you can see that it is going, it's more or less same. Okay, so that's the case, and from the IRR perspective, probably let's leave this, but probably this project is the best one, project number 7. Okay, um, so so what it tells us that from IRR perspective, project 7 is good. From a net present value, project 3 is good, and from the payback period perspective, I think uh, uh, project 6 is good. So probably by seeing these 3 or 4 methods in totality, we see what to what is the best approach, and whether to make an investment for this project or not. Okay, I hope I made you explain this and I didn't confuse you further. And probably it will require a little bit of uh, an understanding from your end, a little bit of efforts to understand this topic. It's overall, I think, interesting and very simple to understand. It's a concept understanding, and I think it's very important. Okay, and with this, I would like to end this video here. And how did you like it? If you have any questions, any suggestions, and any discussions that you would like to do, let's do it. Okay, feel free to contact me. Thank you. Bye bye.